Greetings, everyone. My name is Corey, and this is my new channel, Astronormy. I've recently decided to start seriously dabbling in the field of amateur astrophotography, and I want to document my progress from kind of where I start to where I end, and or where I end up. And I've done some pictures before now. This isn't my first picture, but this is my first one really comfortable with my gear, with my mount, with the telescope that I'm using. Just as a little backstory, about 2 years ago, I bought the Skywatcher Star Adventure 2i or Pro 2i. I can't remember the name of it, but I got it and I had trouble from the first moment I started using it. And it's probably longer than 2 years ago now. And I searched online documentation, couldn't find anybody else that was having this problem consistently other than a couple people here and there. And frankly, with that and a combination of just life, I quickly fell right out of the hobby. And fast forward a couple years, and I really need a hobby to put some time and effort into to kind of take my mind off of daily life. And I started using a Celestron mount, alt-az mount that works okay. It's not great, even when guided. It's not great. It's just not a great mount. I've seen some other videos, especially from Ed Ting, and he's went over some of the issues with Celestron and their lower end alt-az mounts, and now I just see it wasn't me. It was the mount. So fast forward to the last week or so. I looked over on the shelf and I saw my Star Adventurer sitting there, and I'm like, you know what? Give it one more go. I'm a lot more comfortable now with polar alignment and everything else. And for the longest, I thought that was my issue, was that my polar alignment was just so terrible that I wasn't able to take a good picture. Because basically what would happen is I'd start the mount and it would take good pictures for 10 minutes. Solid. I could get up to 3 minutes of exposure with no star drift, no anything. And then the trailing would start, and I could not get rid of it. So I looked into it now, as of here recently. Turns out lots of people were having that same trouble. And it turns out that from what I've read, Skywatcher quite possibly knew they had an issue in the factory and still kept shipping out the mounts, knowing they could do a firmware update later. Problem is, the firmware updates that fixed my issue came after I had quit trying to screw with it. So fast forward to now, and you know what? I'm actually pretty decent at polar alignment. Now that I have a mount that completely relies on it, and that the mount works and tracks properly. After the firmware update, the motor firmware update, perfect. I can get 3 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes, always 2 minutes of exposure time before I start having any major trailing. So what we have right now is a Williams Optics Zenith Star 61 apochromatic telescope. And right now I have it pointed at the constellation Orion, and this is a project I've got going on that I may do another video on in the past. But this right here is to document basically what led up to taking the picture that I'm about to show you. And it is certainly a picture that took me probably an embarrassingly long amount of time to get to. It probably 2 weeks of trial and error. So the photo I'm about to show you was taken on a Canon Rebel T5. That's like a 1200 EOS, something like that. That has a full spectrum mod done by me, and on a slightly modded Rokinon 135mm f2 lens that, thanks to Nico Carver and Nebula Photos, I have been able to find out and do the mod on it that allows you to get a little bit more infinity focus out of it, so that cameras that have been full spectrum modded can come into focus. And so this picture is a result of about 2 or 3 days of trial and error, trying to get my tracking right, trying to get my placement right, trying to get my framing right, and then 2 solid nights culminating in about 7 hours and 20 minutes worth of exposure time. And this is the photo that we got. I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you next time.